Let's have a look at what's happening in the sky today, and let's also talk about numerology. So in numerology today, the 30th of November, the last Sunday of November, is a universal 5-day. So the 5-day is about the challenges and the difficulties. It's about learning to go with the flow. There's lots of changes that take place, so going with the flow makes a lot of sense. When we look at the skies and what's happening in the sky, gosh, there's a lot. First of all, we have our beautiful Venus, which is at an anaretic degree in her in her Scorpio sign. So remember, anaretic 29 degrees can be very like a crisis point. It feels quite tense and quite at a crisis point. And she's trining lovely Neptune, and she's opposite Uranus. So there's this need to have the money situation or the beauty situation or the love situation. We want to have clarity. We want to have some kind of conversation that's going to lead us into seeing the truth. Now, Venus is in Scorpio, so it can be like a very stubborn kind of conversation. Because our Neptune is the planet that dissolves the illusions and brings light to the truth, it can be quite shocking thanks to Uranus, and it can be quite surprising. So what is the best way to manage this? The best way to manage this always is with self-awareness. The more self-awareness we have, the simpler it becomes in navigating our emotions or anything that has to do with life that feels like it's a bit of a, oops, didn't see that coming. Let's look at what's happening also with Saturn. Saturn is finally direct. He went direct on the 28th of November. He is in the sign of Pisces, and he's trining Jupiter, which is retrograde. Saturn has definitely broken down some structure in your life, whether it was romance or your career or your spirituality, or how you are in service to your health. It definitely broke down some kind of a fixed and very long lasting structure, and it's now saying to you, I'm testing your faith. The thing about Saturn is that whatever it touches, it really craves that. It's touching Jupiter. Saturn wants to grow and be free and have all these wonderful aspects that Jupiter produces for us. But Saturn is also very restricted in how it can experience that. So we've got Saturn in the water sign Pisces. We've got Jupiter in the water sign of Cancer. So a lot of this is yielding this kind of patience and perseverance. And when we look at what did Saturn break down for you, where did it test your faith the most? It's now in a trine. It is great. Trines are usually very good. You've just got to understand that trines don't always bring something. We have these expectations of candy floss and smelling beautiful flowers. But sometimes the trine brings out the realities that we don't really want to see. And now is the opportunity for us to look at the realities, look at the truth, especially about how we feel about these things that Saturn has now made very clear to us doesn't work anymore. And how do we move forward? So the other side of this is that the Saturn and Jupiter connection can actually bring about power, money, material wealth. It would be really interesting to see how this trine sits in your chart. Does Saturn rule your money? Does it rule your career? Is, Jupiter the ruler of your career or your money house, or having to do with, clients or suppliers? It depends on how this trine falls in your chart. It would make a lot more sense. But generally, it has been about testing our faith. We look at our fabulous Mercury, who is finally technically direct, but he's stationed. So he's stationed at 20 degrees until Monday the 1st, tomorrow. He then is stationed at 21 degrees, which is Tuesday and Wednesday. And then he moves to 22 degrees on Thursday and Friday. And then he starts slowly moving forward again. So while Mercury is stationed, I still advise that you take your time, do not make any decisions. Stay away from doing anything that is mercurial when you know Mercury is sitting in this dark side of communication, because he's still in the sign of Scorpio. So as much as you want to have these conversations and you want to have, all of this open and honest talk and look, I don't suggest you do that. I suggest you write it down. Get these thoughts out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Something magical happens when you actually write down what you're thinking and feeling, because it's still not the time to have these serious conversations. The repair time of everything that Mercury broke down is only going to start next weekend. So take your time. There's no urgency. Ignore the urgency. Rather put it down on paper and make sure you have clarity. Mercury is going to be full steam ahead on the 17th of December. So by the 17th of December, he's out of his shadow. What do we expect with Mercury stationed in Scorpio? Things change, plans change. What we thought we understood doesn't make sense anymore. What we wanted to change, we can't change. Or things that we thought were fixed are now changeable. There is so much chaos in that. I would suggest we just wait, be patient. You see, Mercury is semi-squaring Jupiter, and he's trining our Chiron. So this is why I'm saying to you, it's about us wanting to have these conversations with other people, the people we relate to, our romantic communications. And Chiron is there. And Chiron's all about the wounds. So we want to talk about the wounds. If you have enough self-awareness to have an open, honest communication about these wounds, then sure, go ahead and have those conversations. But generally speaking, not everyone has got, enough self-awareness to have these conversations. And that's why there's misunderstandings. There's this anger and frustration. And there's this, blah, blah, blahing about wounds from the past. And it just doesn't make sense to do that today. Rather, let's wait. Let's be clear about it. Are you sure it's about them and not about you? Because I promise you it is more about you. Jupiter sextiles Chiron, which is great, but Jupiter also, big, expansive emotions. Chiron is still retrograde in Aries, so it doesn't matter how we go about wanting to heal these wounds. There is a lot of anger and frustration still stuck there. We've got the Sun, which is in Sagittarius, and it's trining the Moon in Aries. So the Sun wants the truth, but can your ego actually handle the truth? That's the question. The Moon in Aries, there's no control over impulses. We're definitely going to overreact and become very angry. Can you see the picture in the sky? The picture in the sky has got all these separate things that are saying, yeah, this looks good, this looks good. But when you look at the entirety of the picture, no, take your time. Be sure that this is the conversation that you actually want to have today. I promise you, the conversation that you're going to have today is not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. So take your time, write it down before you make any type of commitments, before you head with, into this, you dive bomb into this conversation and you haven't actually thought about it. Otherwise, the good news is that Saturn and Mercury are direct. We're just still in that period where we need to be extra cautious, because Saturn is very hard and cold. Thank you, Peanut. Very hard and cold. And the Sun and the Moon today are not having the greatest conversations, because it's this, even though it's a trine, even though the Sun trines the Moon, like I said, how much self-awareness do we have? Is your ego actually ready to hear the truth? Are you going to manage that? Thank you for watching All Things Moons and Stars. I do wish you a glorious and peaceful Sunday, and I'm sure that we will chat soon. Bye for now.